Yay! Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Ship Shape. This week I have Ben Lesnick, all of you know, he's our director of ships here at Cloud Imperium, and we're going to talk a little bit about the concept pipeline for ships, how we come up with them, and what the process is to get them approved and made into something that you guys ultimately get to see.
But if there's one thing we're good at, it's making spaceships.
Yes. All right, so you have been here since the early days, over 3 years now, Ben. Tell us about the early days of the concept pipeline.
So when we started off, there really wasn't a concept pipeline to speak of. Back before the project launched, Chris kind of had these placeholders for ships. You know, he wanted these experiences for people to have. You know, there'd be a basic ship, there'd be a luxury ship, there'd be a multi-crew ship. I think multi-crew was one of those very big things early on. We knew we wanted to have that, you know, you fly the Millennium Falcon type experience. But we didn't really have any details. When we kicked off the campaign, Chris had spent a year and a half working on his demo, and that had 3 ships: the Hornet, the Scythe, and the Bengal, which were all essentially just references to the original Wing Commander. They're the equivalent of the Hornet, the Dralsy, and the Bengal in the original Wing Commander. So when we were setting up the original campaign, we wanted to spec things out, and Chris asked me to kind of handle the community stuff initially. And one of the things I told him going in is the Wing Commander fan community loves ship specifications. So we shouldn't just launch saying a luxury ship or a multi-crew ship. We should tell them exactly what it is and what we think it's going to do. Right. So I was lucky enough to get to sit down with Chris and Dave Haddock and basically come up with the original set of ships, the constellation. We came up with the companies, the ships, what their roles were going to be, their initial stats. It was just a really cool experience, and Chris thought I had a knack for that, so as the campaign went on and we wanted like the second wave of ships with the Cutlass and the Starfarer and everything, I got to be kind of heavily involved in imagining those. And back then it was very much just about coming up with a role. So we would say, okay, we would definitely look at Wing Commander, we'd look at World War II and history and say, okay, a tanker, that would be a fun thing to do in the game, or a pirate transport, like being the Caterpillar. Right. And then from there it would be up to the artists to try to figure out how to make something that looked like my scribblings.
That's awesome. So it was basically just you guys in a room saying, this seems really cool.
Yes. So at one point even, I think we did it live. We came up with a couple of those ships on the initial 24-hour live stream.
Wow.
As we went on, we built out this great pipeline here and in Austin, and we sort of figured out more of the rules for ships as they came online. You have to be able to eject. It has to be able to have cargo. So a lot of the last year and a half has been getting that down to a science.
Right, yeah.
Which, of course, you do. You don't have to tell you that.
I know what it's like now. I just didn't know what it was like back then. Which brings me to our next question. Tell us a little bit about what our new concept pipeline is for ships, how we come up with them in the approval process, and your role in all of that.
So, yeah, Chris just recently kind of officialized my involvement in ships. I used to kind of kick it off and then leave it to more skilled people to make right. So now I'm overseeing a little more of the process.
As director of ships.
Director of ships, yes. And so our big change this time around is for the Wave 4 ships that we're finishing up now, we want to involve design much earlier in the process. With a lot of the ships, they didn't, like a fighter, something like the Vanguard, didn't really need a big design pass very, very early on because it played to an existing game mechanic. But with things like the Hull series, the Endeavor, the Herald, they'll have to have a lot spec'd out before they go to art. One problem we've had occasionally in the past is we've said, okay, this is a cool idea, let's get it to a concept artist. We get back this incredible looking ship, and then it just
doesn't work for a module,
it
right?
Does, yeah. It has to go through iteration after iteration after iteration. So my big goal right now is involving the big design directors, Todd Pappy in Germany, Tony Zurovec, who's in charge of the PU, very, very early on to make sure we are all on the same page with ships, and we kind of we know everything about them before an artist puts pen to paper.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest difference? I can imagine what you're going to say, but I'm going to let you.
I don't know if I'd say it's a difference. It's been an evolving process. We've kind of learned what a spaceship is, and now it's such an exact science. Now you've seen the Merlin, of course.
Right.
That has every single piece of that has to be in the finished game. You know, we look much more forward to the finished game now than we ever did before. Early on, it was about coming up with this great experience, and now it's about, you know, it's meat and potatoes now.
Right. Cool. Okay, so to talk a little bit more about the creative side of the process, how do you come up with chips? Where do you draw your inspiration from? What gives you these ideas to say, oh, this is really cool, and this is how it fits into the lore?
Well, I started off, of course, just looking at Wing Commander. I got into this whole thing because I'm a Wing Commander fan. And so, you know, initially we said, okay, medium fighter, heavy fighter, all the basic combat ships just kind of evolved naturally from Wing Commander. Beyond that, we, you know, as we kind of expanded out, created more of a universe, started looking at things like, okay, here were some ships that you never would have flown in a game like that, but they existed in the background. They made up the universe, and let's come up with a career gameplay mechanic that goes with that. That's things like the tanker, the pirate ship, things like that. I've forgotten what the question was.
It was like, what provides you your inspiration?
So I'm as big a nerd as can come. So I grew up watching movies like 2001. I basically wore out my VHS copy of 2001. One of the reasons I'm so excited about the Endeavor, because that's directly inspired by the Discovery. So I grew up with Star Trek, Star Wars, all the classic sci-fi things, and the more obscure stuff that we can look to when we're coming up with something more detailed. Like the Endeavor is it's got a little bit of the biome ship from Silent Running in it. So a lot of classic spaceships we look at, and World War II. That's all air combat, really. Looking at different roles for fighters and support planes. That's where the Vanguard really came out of. Was we said, okay, there's sci-fi games really have never taken, you know, the Mosquito Messerschmitt 110 and turned it into like a long-range fighter, and we grew from there. So we look to history for a lot of that sort of thing.
And let's see, final question. Are there any ships that we came up with but we just could not get to work and we ended up not moving forward? It's like, oh, this is a cool idea, but we just couldn't figure out something that made it appealing.
For sure. We have a lot of ships where, you know, earlier on we would say whenever we come up with variants, we'll come up with probably 3 or 4 that we're going to use, and there'll be, you know, 10 or 15 others that we still want to make someday. The one that sticks with me is the Hornet Sniper that we couldn't make work with the gameplay early on. Wanted sort of a ranged Hornet where it would have like long-range missiles and lasers that were only effective at a long distance. That one's still in the back of my head. I'd like to bring that back sometime because I think we do it pretty easily at this point. But maybe when Arena Commander is a little more mature.
Right.
The other thing that everyone keeps actually shooting me down on is, of course, space whales, where we would literally take our ship mechanic and it would be like an organic creature, and then that would be part of the game's lore, and there were people who protect them and hunt them. And I keep pushing that. It's never going to happen.
Space whales. I'll help you out there, Ben.
All right. We appreciate that.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Ship Shape. Back to you, Sandy and Ben.
Nice. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Ben.